Predict, pick, and prevail in your fantasy football leagues with Nick Giacobbe and Nick Cap. From breakouts to busts, superstars to sleepers, these are the guys that will help you achieve fantasy glory. This is the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to Week 11, and welcome to the PrimeTime Fantasy Football Podcast, where we give you our predictions, our picks, with the hopes that we help you prevail today in Week 11 and the rest of the 2024 fantasy football season. I'm your host, Nick Giacobbe. Joining me is Nick Cap. Nick, it's Week 11 for us in our sleeper leagues, and for you guys out there in your sleeper leagues as well. It is trade deadline day / week, which is really weird. So on sleeper, I think the default is Week 11, which actually means that it actually ends tomorrow night. So I think you can make trades with players that are currently playing both today and tomorrow night, but you actually, the trade deadline is technically tomorrow night, end of Week 11. So trade deadline, end day, Week 11, 11, 12, 13, 14, 3 more weeks, right? 3 more weeks. Well, no, 4 more weeks of the fantasy football season, including today. And things are getting big. Things are getting very, very big and scary.
Yeah, don't mind me, guys. I'm just our platform's giving us a little bit of issue, so I'm changing some colors and fixing some things up.
Yeah, if you see the background and the colors changing, we logged on this morning and our StreamYard platform decided to not cooperate with us. Also, if you dropped the question in the chat previously before we went live, please drop it again. It may have gone into the aether, and we don't want to make sure that we got your question. So make sure if you did drop a question in before we actually hit the live button. Nick might see it. I don't see it, but just drop your question again. If there's a reason we didn't answer it, it's because we just don't see it. Just drop it again. Don't feel bad about it. So, again, thanks for joining us, guys. It is Week 11. Like I said, big week. It's our Sunday morning live show. If you're a first-time viewer, thank you so much. This is the PrimeTime Fantasy Football Podcast, and we do the show every single Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, available on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We highly recommend going to YouTube, as Instagram won't actually pop your comments up like this, or like this, or like this, or like this. So your comments will get popped up on the screen if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. But on YouTube, you can actually see the queue as to where your question is. So if we have 10 questions on YouTube, you could see the line that you're actually waiting in. And we will answer all of your questions, I promise. You don't need to write them multiple times unless we don't answer it, then write it. But we will get to your question, and we'll give you some thorough responses for each question to make sure that you have the most accurate information and the best information to make your decision as a fantasy football manager. When we don't have questions, we're going to go to our game-by-game preview, talk about injuries, what we're kind of looking for in each game, mainly just injuries at this point. Finally, you could ask any fantasy football related questions that you do have. Mostly they're start-sit questions, and we're happy to answer those. But again, if you're on a sleeper platform, your trade deadline is most likely today / tomorrow. If you have any trade questions, let us know. I've made a couple trades this week. Nick, I didn't even tell you about this one. I'll tell you about it real quick before we answer some questions, and we'll let the queue kind of fill up. So I'm in a league where I have a very good team, but I am last in points against. It's a 10-man league, and I'm just getting ripped apart on a week-to-week basis. So I decided I needed to make a move. I was kind of running back heavy. So my running backs were James Cook, Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, and Brian Robinson. And then my receivers, tight end Sam Laporta, my receivers were T. Higgins, D.K. Metcalf, Devontae Smith, and not D.K. Metcalf. Garrett Wilson, Devontae Smith, T. Higgins. So I traded James Cook for Tyreek Hill straight up. Tyreek Hill is a real high ceiling player, as we both know. So I'm hoping that ceiling does help me out in these next few weeks. So that is my latest trade, at least. All right. Let's go with our first question. Kittle is going to be out. Yep. Right now, who do you grab? I mean, see if Brock Wright is available for the Lions. I would check out Brock Wright if he's available. And then I'd also check out Dawson Knox for the Bills. I'm assuming the owners of both Laporta and Kincaid have probably already picked them up, but those are two options I would kind of go for. At that point, I would look for a tight end with the highest over-under game.
That's a good route. I mean, I don't know who the backup is for Kittle. I mean, that's not a bad play either.
My only concern is that Kittle gets targets because he's super talented, and the rest of that team is really stacked. And that concerns me. So, all right. Next question we have from Nick here. Trevor Lawrence guy and Jaguars fan. Apologies for that. What's up, guys? Pick 2, full PPR. Juwan Jennings against the Seahawks. Jaden Reed against the Bears. DeAndre Swift against the Packers. And CeeDee Lamb was questionable on Monday Night Football against the Houston Texans. So, first off, Nick, I just feel like you still have to play Lamb. I just think he's too talented not to play. I don't love the matchup, and I don't love the fact that the Cowboys offense is absolutely garbage right now, but I feel like he's one of those like 4 or 5 players that really are that good. And if he stinks it up this week, then we could have the conversation that we had with Tyreek Hill when Tua was out, but they've had a week in a day or two to prepare. I think you have to roll out CD and just see what happens at least.
Totally agree on that one. If he does not play, or with him having that questionable tag, do you want to roster someone else from the game?
I think he's going to play. I mean, most of the time with these questionable tags, we'll know a day before. I think at this point we know how questionable he is, and it seems like he's going to play. That's my thoughts on it. That's my thoughts at least.
Sounds good.
For our second guy, so I actually have Jaden Reed on our all bust team. We do our all boom and all bust team for the week on our Friday episodes that are pre-recorded, available on our YouTube and all audio streaming platforms. So for Jaden Reed, facing the Bears, we're a bad football team, but do have a good defense. The Bears have allowed the second fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, an average of 20.7. And that doesn't mean that receivers score 20.7. That's just the lowest overall average. The Bears also allow the fewest fantasy points to slot wide receivers. Jaden Reed plays a lot of games in the slot. Jaden Reed is under double digits in 2 of his last 3 games. That Packers offense, like I've said in the past, is streaky in terms of fantasy production. It's also the second lowest over-under of the week. When I did write these notes, it was at 40.5. So I really like Juwan Jennings. I think Nick has Deebo Samuel on his all boom team, so he could kind of read off the Deebo reasons, which do play in the hand of Juwan Jennings. The Seahawks defense is bad, like really bad, and the 49ers just dominate them. So Nick, why don't you go? I'm kind of guessing you're going to pick Jennings, but if you don't, at least read out your Deebo stats just for the sake of backing my take up.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on Jennings of the other 3. I was taking a look at Jaden Reed's stats versus the Bears in his career. The first game was 2 catches on 5 targets for 48 yards. Second game then was 4 catches for 112 yards. So 2 very big strands, but very low usage as he does in most of his games. So no too big of a surprise there. I like Deebo against Seattle. The 49ers always crush Seattle, and Deebo especially. Deebo in his career averages over 120 plus all-purpose yards between receiving and rushing, over 8 targets, and he has 7 touchdowns in his 7 games against them. So I'm a big proponent of playing Deebo this week, and you're probably playing him most weeks, but expecting a huge game from him. With no Kittle, I would have guessed that Juwan Jennings is the biggest benefactor, him and CMC, from that. So I like Jennings a little bit more in this spot now.
From Dino Butt, DeAndre Swift or DK Metcalf in the flex. So DeAndre
children laughing at that name, but it's a fire name.
It's great. What do you think here, Nick? I love, you love DK on the season. I think I've loved DK as well. That's just that the DeAndre Swift matchup just seems tough to me. I'm trying to look at the defensive stats for the Packers. They're like 14th against the defense, so it's nothing crazy. Swift has been super duper consistent. I think he has like let me see, because I had him on my all boom team last week, so I know I've looked at these numbers. But DeAndre Swift in his last 1, 2, 3, 4, in his last 6 games, he has over 14 fantasy points in 5 of those 6 games. The only game he didn't was last week. Man, I want to know if this is PPR because I might sway my decision, but DK against the Niners coming off the injury does worry me a little bit. I think the Niners are going to demolish my Seahawks today.
So I have DK on the all bust team. Although I don't like Swift, I would rather play DK, but I'll tell you why I don't like DK, and then I could give you like the good side of it. So earlier this year when they played, he only had 3 catches, and that was with Geno having 52 passing attempts in the game. With Geno at quarterback, DK has not eclipsed 55 yards against the 49ers in his career or in that span. He only has 1 touchdown in those 5 games. He only has 1 game over 4 catches against the 49ers. So this is a really bad spot for him historically. The average is the median is 4 catches for 55 yards, maybe a little less yards than that, but it has not been great. The only upside to that is Geno did throw 52 times, and he did get 11 targets in that game. So there is the upside of the better game, where I don't think Swift is going to have that unless Love turns the ball over. They get in the end zone multiple times. They changed the play caller to the passing game coordinator on a team that had a bad passing game. Like, I don't agree with the decision to fire Waldron in that spot. I think I would have just cleared house at the end of the season, but you do get the slight coaching boost. It could really go either way, and in that case, I would rather go with the talent of DK Metcalf over Swift. So that's where I would fall, but I don't mind the Swift play over Metcalf.
I would like to see if you're projected to win or not, because if you're projected to win, I would play Swift. I think he has a safer floor, but if you're projected to lose, I'd play DK, who has a higher ceiling, lower floor. I think the Seahawks going to Geno's never beaten the 49ers, so.
Yeah.
All right. From Dylan Fink, happy game day, full PPR. Start one at tight end and one at quarterback. Let's start with the tight end question first. We have Taysom Hill versus Cleveland, or Dawson Knox versus Kansas City, or Will Dissly versus Cincinnati, or Cole Kmet versus Green Bay, or Brock Wright versus Jacksonville. So my two favorites out of those, Nick, are the backups, Dawson Knox and Brock Wright. So I actually had Dalton Kincaid on the all boom team for reasons that didn't really pertain to Dalton Kincaid, but the matchup. So the Chiefs allow the second most fantasy points, 2 tight ends, an average of 13.1. The Chiefs are really tough on running backs. They're the best defense against running backs, been the best defense against running backs the entire season. So I actually think this will result in the Bills having to throw more. I'm really cool with playing Dawson Knox here. He does have a connection and some chemistry with Josh Allen. Played with him for a couple of years. Again, I think he'll have to throw. I think this game will have the highest over/under, I believe, out of all the games you just listed. So I'm cool with you playing Dawson Knox and knowing that I think it'll be a game where the Bills both have to score and will have opportunities late in the game where they have to drive down the field. So I'm cool with Knox in this situation.
Yeah, I agree. I would not go with Brock Wright. I know everybody else is excited about it and a very easy matchup. Jacksonville's bad against everybody. There's no reason for Brock Wright to have a big game when Gibbs and Monty are going to combine for 40-ish touches. Amon-Ra will probably get the line share, the receiver work. Jared Goff in these spots against bad teams is throwing the ball only like 15 times in the game. So it is not a good spot for Brock Wright as much as people think. The touchdown upside is obviously higher. But Kansas City, the one weakness on defense that they have has been the tight end position this year. So I don't mind favoring Dawson Knox in a game where we know Amari Cooper should be back, but he's dinged up. Keon Coleman, I don't know if he's playing, but I know he was dinged.
I think he's on the IR, isn't he? I thought he was.
Maybe. He might be. I haven't seen injury news on him, but I have seen on shows that he's been injured. So I do not mind that matchup as much. I do not like the Brock Wright play like everybody is backing in this one.
I just picked up Dawson Knox in both of my leagues that I have Laporta, and I switched out Brock Wright, who I did have. Okay. Next is a quarterback question. Stafford at New England, Anthony Richardson at Knicks Jets, Tua at Vegas, and Drake May at the Rams. He's been decent, but I don't want to play Drake May with that slew of guys.
I don't mind it. Drake May's been solid and he's been a lot more mobile than I think people give him credit for. I don't want the Richardson matchup. He has that upside every week because
I think they like the Vegas one. The Raiders have given up 6, 7, 8, 9. The 11th most fantasy points to quarterbacks at 18.5. The Dolphins are kind of in like effort mode and need to win every game to make the playoffs. I think I'm kind of in on the Tua play. They're healthy. The offense is healthy.
Yeah, I don't mind that as much. I'm good with that or Drake May. I don't mind either.
Okay. I like the most talented offense. So
the 4 games that Drake May has started and finished, he ended one with a concussion. Yeah, his games are 13, 18, 21, 21. So he's been a solid fantasy quarterback. 2 of those finished in the top 10. And then Tua, the matchup's very good for him, obviously.
All right, thank you for that. And we do have questions in the queue. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can kind of see where you are. Please be patient. We will get to your questions, I promise you. For my brother Joe, start Rashad Bateman, Marquise Valdez-Scantling, or John Lou Smith. Man, I don't know how he doesn't have better options. I think I'd rather Bateman, but I think I'd rather Bateman.
I don't know. I feel like Deontay is gonna eventually get that workload.
I think so too, but I just don't want to play MVS or Jonnu Smith.
Me neither. What are your other options, Joe?
Yeah, this is like, ugh. Yeah, give us other options. Lex, plant some trees. Is Keenan Allen and or Pittman droppable? Ooh, good question. Would you drop them for handcuffs or to save defenses for the future, trying to get defenses against Dallas for upcoming weeks? If you were like 7-2, 8-1, maybe my records are off, but you know what I mean? If you are primed to like get a bye and you're in the playoffs, and especially if you're in a 10-man league, I think Keenan Allen's very droppable if you're just picking up a defense for the playoffs. Pittman, I would rather keep Pittman, but I think Keenan Allen is very droppable.
I actually have the flip take. I would rather drop Pittman than Keenan Allen. We have not seen a good game from Pittman with Anthony Richardson. I don't think he's broken double digits at all this season. Keenan Allen looked good before the bye with him. His last 5 games, 6, 10, 7, 5, 6 targets. The game before the bye, 21.1. The rest of the schedule, he has Minnesota, Detroit, twice. He's got Seattle. It's a very easy schedule for wide receivers.
But do you think the Bears are going to compete? Like, I feel like that offense is dead in the water right now.
No, but I would rather wait the week and see what the new offense looks like than jump to drop him this week. I think you can wait to see what it looks like. If he looks horrible again this week, I do not mind dropping him and then stashing defenses long term. Pittman, I've seen dropped in a few leagues. I picked him up in one because you never know.
Sure.
But at the same time, I don't think at any point you're going to feel comfortable starting him unless you get a heater.
Sure. All right. From George Play. Sup, guys? With Kittle's news unlikely to play, who should I pick up? Knox or Disley? Also, who would I drop? JSN, DJ Moore, Ricky Pearsall, Jordan Mason, or Jalen Waddle? I think I'd drop Mason. McCaffrey's back. If you're holding on to him, you're just playing the handcuff game, and then you're saying to yourself, why would you not have other handcuffs? I think I would drop Mason or Pearsall, whichever one you're more comfortable dropping. Maybe I give the slight edge to Pearsall because I think he's third on the depth chart behind Juwan Jennings and behind Debo. So I think I'd actually lean Pearsall, and I would pick up Knox. I don't want to play Will Disley. I'll pick up Knox. Again, for the reasons we just stated, the Bills are bad. The Chiefs are good against everything except tight ends, and I think the Bills will have to throw in this game. I'm playing Knox in 2 leagues, so we'll be in this together. You're joining the foxhole.
I mean, if you have to drop one, then it's Mason. If not, I mean, I wonder if you have anyone else on your team, like if you have a stash defense that you could afford to get rid of. I really don't want to abandon any of these guys. We've seen CMC multiple times have the injury after the first couple weeks and then re-exit the season after 2 or 3 games. So I do. Mason's been dropped in a ton of my leagues. I've picked him up every single place that I can because I feel like it's due. Every time McCaffrey's gotten hurt at the start of the year, he's gotten hurt later in the year, and I want to roster him just in case. That's the one handcuff I do not want to drop. But obviously, the rest of these guys are potential starters any week based on matchup. Jordan Mason is not unless of an injury. So,
all right. From Joshua, so I believe I just want to double check this on Twitter. I believe Joshua joined us from Twitter. He had some questions, and I said, come join us for the live show. So thanks for trusting us and joining the live. So his first question he has here is, I think he's from Twitter at least. I hope I'm not wrong on this one. I think so.
Right.
Dawson Knox or Kyle Pitts, full PPR. Who do the Falcons have? Oh, they have the Broncos. They have the Broncos, and I have both Kirk Cousins and Drake London on the all bust team. But Pitts is more reliable as a target than Knox. Knox is a backup. I know we've been talking about Knox the entire show, but
I would rather know the upside of Pitts. Knox is touchdown or bust. So
I think they're both touchdown or bust. I mean, Kyle Pitts is under 10 fantasy points in back-to-back games, but you're right. I mean,
but Pitts has had a stretch of good games, and he wasn't a touchdown machine in that span.
Yeah. I'm trying to see where the Broncos are in defensive ranks against tight ends. I think they're middle of the pack. I would go with Pitts because I'm worried about Drake London getting shadowed by Pat Surtain. So I think a lot of targets could go to Darnell Mooney and Kyle Pitts. So I will go with Kyle Pitts here. Mm-hmm. And then we have Joshua's second question. So I guess this is a flex spot. So that's my guess. So let's say Pitts is the starting tight end. Then we have Josh Downs against Knicks Jets, or we have Dawson Knox against the Chiefs. kind of want to go Dawson Knox here. The Jets are really good against receivers. They're number one against receivers.
Well, I'd still go Pitts because we said it in the last question.
Well, but I'm assuming this is a flex question, I think.
Okay, so got it. So
because the last question was Pitts or Knox, I'm assuming it's tight end and then a flex. Since he's throwing a receiver in here. He could clarify in the comments, but my guess is this is for a flex.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Josh Downs' stats. They're insane, the target share over the last 7 games. I mean, it's 9, 12, 9, bad game at 3, and then 9, 9, 10.
You're not worried about the Jets at all?
I am worried about the Jets because my defense sucks. Since Robert
I didn't mean it like that. I wasn't even trying to take a dig there.
No. I know what you mean. I would be a little concerned about the Jets a little bit more than most. I don't. I'm gonna actually check over the last few weeks what they look like, or since Salah's been canned. At least so over the last 5, I'm finding this out in real time. So we will see. The Jets allow the 13th most points to the wide receiver position since week 7. So,
okay. All right. Then I'm with you on the Josh Downs play if that's where you're leaning.
Yeah. Jets defense numbers look great because they were so dominant with Salah, and they have not been since.
All right. Evan, I see you're next with one question here, but I'm going to go to Nick's question first, which is smack in the middle of yours, and then we'll get to both of your questions back to back. So from Nick, Dawson Knox or the ceiling of Taysom Hill, full PPR. With Derek Carr starting, I don't love the ceiling of Taysom Hill. I mean, he could always have a touchdown. He could always run for some yards, but I would still rather Dawson Knox in what really is the biggest primetime game of the week, even though it's not primetime, but it's fake primetime on CBS and Red Zone.
So here's the deal. If you are a Taysom Hill person, you have to be committed to Taysom Hill. You have to take the bad with the high, and you have to ride him out every single game that you have him. That's your choice. But once you buy into Taysom Hill, there is no selling. You play him every week, and you hope you get the 4 to 5 big weeks that win you the week. That's it. You cannot bench him. That's the Taysom Hill rule. If you want to bench him, then you either need a consistent great pivot or someone you traded for at some point of the year, but you cannot abandon Taysom Hill. That's the rule. So if you have Taysom Hill and you trusted him to this point, you have to play Taysom Hill. That's my rule.
All right. So now we're going to go to Evan's 2 questions here. His first one, pick 2, half PPR. Nick Chubb against the Saints. Doing this off the top of my head. Kareem Hunt against the Bills. Tony Pollard against...
Good luck remembering who the Titans play.
It's not the Vikings. I feel like they just did the Vikings.
Vikings.
Is it the Vikings?
I'm going to check.
No, well, it's a team that's bad against receivers because of Ridley. I think it is the Vikings. Double check for me. And then Najee Harris against the Ravens. So my first one, slam dunk play, is Kareem Hunt. The Bills have allowed the second most fantasy points to running backs, an average of 26 points every single week on the all boom team. I put whatever running back is against the Bills for that reason. 6 running backs have scored 19 plus fantasy points against the Bills this season. And Kareem Hunt has been very, very productive this season. Since week 5, he's been the running back 8 with 13 plus fantasy points in all 5 games with an average of 18 fantasy points. That is the 5th highest average among running backs, again, since week 5. So Kareem Hunt's my first play. I'm assuming you agree with me on that.
My first isn't Hunt, but Hunt's in my 2.
Okay, so who's your other one then? Because I don't have another one yet.
Nick Chubb. I have him on the all boom team. 3 weeks before the bye, it was all tough matchups, but he got good snap share, 42 carries in that span. Now they come off the bye. You get the Winston revenge game against the Saints. The touchdown upside is big for him to get near the goal line and punch it in, but the workload's going to be guaranteed in a very easy matchup.
I really do like Pollard on this rest of the season, but he's a really tough matchup.
Minnesota's really good against running.
They're good against the run, but Pollard's only at under double digits twice this season. If you want a consistent play, I would go with Pollard because he's at over double digits in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 7 out of 9 games. So he's been very, very consistent, but he's probably going to need a touchdown. So I would probably lean Pollard because I don't like what I see from Chubb yet, but that's just me. Mm-hmm. And second question from Evan, pick 2, again, half PPR, George Pickens, Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel. Nick, why don't you go first with, I think I know what 2 we're going to pick here. So why don't you talk about Deebo first, and I'll talk about George Pickens first.
Yep.
Unless you disagree on my Pickens take, that's fine, but I'll let you go first.
Nope. Totally fine with that. So I have Debo on the all boom team. He crushes Seattle in his career. It's kind of weird. He's only played 7 games considering he's a rookie from 2019 but he's just always dinged up. In those games, he averages over 120 all-purpose yards, about 100 receiving, 20 rushing. He has over 8 targets. He averages over 8 targets, and he has 7 touchdowns in those 7 games. So I'm guessing history repeats itself, and he has another big game against Seattle.
So I'm actually trying to trade for Devontae Adams like now, but I do want to play George Pickens. So Pickens facing the Ravens in the divisional matchup. The Ravens have allowed the most fantasy points to wide receivers this season, an average of 38.1. And Pickens has been very, very productive with Russell Wilson. Since week 7, George Pickens is the wide receiver 17. That's including a bye week, so that means his ranking actually dips. He has double-digit fantasy points in all 3 games with Russ, 20-plus points in 2 out of those 3 games. His average is also 18 fantasy points per game since week 7. That is ranked the 9th among wide receivers. Then and against the Ravens last year in 1 game, he had 26.6 fantasy points. Then talking about Russell Wilson, he's been your quarterback 15 since entering as the starter. He has 13 plus fantasy points in all 3 games. His average is 19.3, which puts him at the quarterback 11. The over-under of this game is set at 47.5. I think that's too high, but it is the 3rd highest over-under of the week. So you can listen to Vegas on that one. So me and Nick are both going to go with Debo and Pickens. But I am looking to trade for Devontae Adams. His value is very low right now.
Yep.
From Bryce, fellas, good morning. Javonte Williams or I don't know how to pronounce his first name, but estimate at running back today. I don't love the question at all. This is throwing the dice. Let's see. The Falcons. Where are you against the run? The Falcons are actually
middle of the pack.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're number 11 against the run, so actually kind of tough against the run. I think I'd rather play Estime. He's the rookie. Sean Payton chose to draft him. They gave him the most target, the most snap share last week. I think Sean Payton's going to want to ride the hot hand, but this is really just a gamble here.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I guess if you want to go with someone, you take the rookie.
Nick, I don't mean to cut you off, but his next question is listing pick one at the flex, London, Pollard, Myers, or Reed. So if Pollard's in play for this question, let us know, because I think I'd rather play Pollard over both of these guys, even though it's a tougher matchup. I just feel like it's a real gamble with the Denver backs, but you could talk to Nick.
So Javonte, 2 carries last week, SMA 14. That should tell you that they're leaning that way, but then again, never trust Sean Payton.
Never know.
Exactly. Javante's been over 50% snap share all year. It would be very hard to see them just full 180, but it's definitely possible. I mean, I guess go with Estime if you have to pick between the 2 of them, but I agree with Nick. If Pollard's an option, if it's the same league, then play Pollard and you get one more, and you get 2 flex options.
All right, we'll get to your question in 1 second. Just going to see if you're going to write in the chat. But we're about 30 minutes in, and that's okay. Keep asking those questions, guys. This is the Primetime Fantasy Football Podcast. If you're a first-time viewer, we're here every single Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, available on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And then we give you 2 shows during the week on Tuesdays and Thursdays/Fridays that are pre-recorded, available on our YouTube channel and our audio streaming platform. So if you haven't already, drop a like on this video. We'd appreciate that. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that bell icon so you get notifications every single time we do go live. And lastly, keep asking those questions. We'll be live for as long as the questions keep filling in. So we did say these are different leagues. So in the second league, pick one at the flex. Drake London, Tony Pollard, Jacoby Myers, or Jaden Reed. This is tough for me because the 2 players that are most talented here are London and Reed, but they're both on my all-bust team. And I'll give you some reasons so you can make a decision for yourself here, Bryce. Jaden Reed is facing the Bears, who allowed the second fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, an average of 20.7. The Bears also allow the fewest points to slot wide receivers, and Jaden Reed does take a lot of snaps from the slot. Jaden Reed is under double digits in 2 out of his last 3 games. Like I've said in the past, the Packers offense is streaky in terms of fantasy. You don't know who's going to get the ball. It's also the second lowest over-under of the week at 40.5, so Vegas is predicting a low-scoring game. Then for Drake London, who I think is your most talented player on this list, is facing the Broncos, who allow the 3rd fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, an average of 21. And he's going to get shadowed by Patrick Surtain, who's been the best cornerback in the league for the entirety of the season. So... And then Jacoby Myers, Nick, doesn't really have a good matchup either. He's going to.
I have him on the all bust team.
All right, so talk about Myers and tell me who you'd rather play, because Pollard also doesn't have a good matchup. He's facing the Vikings, who allow the third fewest points to running backs. So these are really talented players. These are talented players, but you are getting hit with bad matchups across the board. So, Nick, why don't you speak about Myers, and then we can both come to an executive decision as to who we want to play.
Sure. So, quite simply, Miami's top 5 team against the wide receiver.
Real quick, Bryce, right in this chat right now. Number 1, is this PPR? And number 2, are you projected to win or lose? Did you get smacked in the face by Saquon Barkley on Thursday Night Football? Give us a situation so we can help you with this, because I need to see how much of a ceiling you need. And now Nick could go.
So Myers has had the safe floor in terms of usage, but now they're changing quarterback again. They're so indecisive. They literally announced they wanted to start Desmond Ridder this week, and then the coach has got cold feet. If I ever hear my coach has cold feet, I'm firing them. So congratulations. You probably lost your job to Antonio Pierce for being that ridiculous. At first, you chase your star wide receiver out of town, and then you do that. Very good coaching, very mature coach, very great decision maker over there. So I am not trusting Jakobi Meyers in this matchup. Nick, let's agree. So who do we like of the
So I'm waiting for his response, but let's assume this is PPR, and let's assume, again, I want to know his situation. I want to know how much he needs to win. I want to know what his projection is. Is this a playoff determining matchup? Does he really need a high ceiling? Let's assume for the sake.
What's the safe floor? What's the high ceiling?
PPR, 60% chance of winning, but my opponent hasn't changed his lineup yet. Last question, Bryce. How badly do you need this win? Are you 7-2? Are you 4-5? How badly do you need this win? For now, we'll assume we need a high ceiling.
Nick's
I think it's Jaden Reed. I think Jordan Love throws for a lot of yards. I think that's the best offense that we're looking at here, and I think he has the best chance of breaking a long touchdown. But for all the reasons that I stated, I don't love the matchup. But again, that is my highest ceiling play looking at these guys. I am a lot more concerned about Drake London against Surtain and Myers against Ramsey and the rest of the Dolphins defense than I am about Jaden Reed. The Bears are a bad team that are dead in the water. So I will 5-5 need a win. I'll still say Jaden Reed. I'm a big Pollard guy. I'm a Pollard truther, but his matchup is bad, and these receivers are talented even though they have bad matchups. I will say Jaden Reed. I don't know who you're going to say, but
I would go the talent of Drake London. I don't love the Surtain matchup, but I do wonder how much he does actually get shadowed in the game.
Benefit is that Jakobi Meyers is very good. I'm sorry that Darnell Mooney's been very good, so that's a benefit, but still.
Yeah, I don't love the London play. Obviously, this week I wanted to bust London, and Nick had first dibs on him. But I would, in this situation where I don't like the matchup for any of them, my number 1 pick will always be to go with the talent, and the talent to me is London. My number 2 would be Reed. I don't mind playing Reed over him because I agree with Nick. He could get that big touchdown. Reed is kind of the one play makes or breaks the week.
Yeah.
And I guess you take the flyer there if you need. But I do think London is I don't know if he's the safest option, but he's definitely the most talented of the group.
Yeah. Good luck, Bryce, because these are all really tough matchups, and we are trying our best. All right, so this is a response from Joe. His original question was start Rashad Bateman, MVS, or John Smith. These are the rest of his options: Tajay Spears, Keyshawn Boutte, Gabe Davis, Ray McLeod, Dontavian Wicks. I think I kind of want to play Wicks because everybody else screams just meh to me. And I feel like Wicks on that inconsistent Packers offense could be the guy to break out, especially if he's a wide receiver 2 or 3 and not getting shadowed and a ton of attention. I know it sounds ridiculous, but Bateman's your wide receiver 3 and is behind more talented receivers. Gabe Davis is on the Jags with Mac Jones. I don't want Jonnu Smith. I don't want MBS.
I totally disagree with you here, Nick.
Okay.
I
what do you got?
Go with Wicks. I would take the flyer on MVS of the group. I don't love MVS. I don't know if that's a safe option, but Noah Olave, Browns defense, better opportunity in that situation. I think this game has a better chance to be a shootout between any of the games. I can't justify playing Wicks against the Bears. The Bears are the number 1 team against the wide receiver position. And Wicks is the wide receiver 4. I was looking at his game log to see if I could give any justification. He has 3 double-digit games this season. The rest of them are under 5 points. His snap share the last 5 games has like consistently been under 40%. So there's no, for me, I can't justify putting him in there. I agree with you. He's the flyer. And any single week he could
I'm just
go.
looking for a flyer with a single week because there's always 1 or 2 receivers that are just flyers that end up in the top 5. I'm throwing darts at the board because I don't like any option that I'm looking at.
Yeah, and that's fine. That works for fantasy.
All right, from Drish, PPR, start 4 wide receivers: Lad McConkey, CeeDee Lamb, Khalil Shakir, Zay Flowers, and Cedric Tillman. Is Tillman on your album? Is one of these guys on your album?
Tillman is.
So why don't you go first? I mean, we have to start 4 out of 5, so why don't you go first?
So Tillman, again, I've kind of been all over since his first good game. And this is a great matchup now. He gets the horrible secondary of the Saints. You get the Jameis Winston revenge game. In the 3 games that Tillman's been going off, the last 3 games, he's been a top 12 receiver. Each of those weeks, his target share has been 12, 9, and 11. He has 3 touchdowns in that span. If I just showed you the stats and took the name away, you would think it was CeeDee Lamb's numbers. I mean, that's kind of exactly what it looks like. Obviously not saying he's the talent of CeeDee Lamb, but he's putting up the numbers of a player like that, and that's just too primed in a matchup like this to bench.
Yeah, so I mean, if we're doing 4 here, I agree with Nick and Tillman. I think we're both going to say you have to start CD. I like Flowers a lot. In the 3rd highest over/under game of the week, he's currently your wide receiver 9. The Steelers don't have an all-star corner, so those are the 3 that I like. Now we're between McConkey and Shakir. Shakir's going up against the Chiefs, who have allowed the 9th fewest fantasy points to receivers. And McConkey's going up against the Bengals, who are just a bad defense all around. Even though, from a fantasy standpoint, Nick, the Bengals are never bottom 5 in any category, which is really weird. But when my eyes watch them, their defense is bad. They're like 15th middle of the pack against receivers. So who do you think? Would you rather Lad or would you rather Shakir?
I'd rather Lad. I don't want to play Shakir against that Chiefs defense. I'm going to pull up. Let's see what Shakir did. I was pulling up Zay Flowers stats.
Shakir's had 4 straight weeks with double-digit fantasy points, which helps his case at least.
But no Amari Cooper in that span. Zay Flowers. So I wanted to pull up Zay Flowers' game. His one time that he played the Steelers, 5 catches on 11 targets for 73 yards. Yep, that's good.
He's looked good with Lamar this season. I don't want to tell people to bench Zay Flowers most weeks. There have been weeks where I've told you to bench him, and I've been correct because he's been on the bust team, but I don't want to tell people to bench Zay Flowers because he's very good. So
the 2 games.
And for the Bills right now, Keon Coleman's out with a wrist. Dalton Kincaid's out with the knee, so Dawson Knox is filling in. Amari Cooper with a wrist is questionable, but I believe he's leaning towards playing.
So the 2 games that they've played, Shakir versus the Chiefs in his career, 1 catch for 14 yards, 1 catch for 12 yards. But, I mean, he didn't have the usage that he had at that time span.
Sure.
So it's a little bit of an outlier. I still don't like the matchup against Kansas City. I typically boom the wide receiver 1 against them or bust the wide receiver 1 against them each week.
Okay.
I'd rather go with McConkey. I like Justin Herbert's passing volume has gone up significantly the last 5 weeks compared to the start of the year. If the Bengals offense does what the Bengals offense does, I mean, this is a great matchup. I mean, the Chargers are allowing 13 points per game over the course of the season. The Bengals lead the league in points per game, or maybe top 2 or 3. This is the unstoppable force versus a movable object.
Yep.
If the Bengals offense proves to be better than the Chargers defense, then you're going to see Justin Herbert come out and half the ball and be the stat sheet stuffer that Nick likes. And that's only good for a slot receiver. So I think that there's more likelihood that happens than Shakir Cooks, one of the best secondaries in football.
Last thing I'll say, I'm in on CD, Flowers, and Tillman. You could make this decision at 4:00. If you are down a lot of points, I would put Shakir in there because I think he does have a higher ceiling in a game where Allen's going to have to throw a lot of time.
Sure.
But if your matchup is close, play McConkey. That's my final say on those 2. Yep. All right, guys, keep asking those questions. We have a couple more in the chat to get through, but keep asking those questions. From Fatty McFats, that mug is classic. This is my Darth Vader mug. I bring it out when I have to drink tea when my throat's bothering me and I have a little bit of a cold. So there you go. Also, today's November 17th. It is a happy Life Day to you Star Wars fans. So Life Day is like Star Wars Christmas for Wookiees. You could look it up, but I love it. It's phenomenal. So happy Life Day to you Star Wars fans. From Kyle Singer, Romeo Dobbs, Nick Chubb, Travis Etienne, pick one, running back, pick one, flex, full PPR. Nick, you're all over Chubb, so I'll let you go first just in case he wasn't in the chat when you're reading off the Chubb stats. But I will agree with you on the Chubb play here, so take it away.
I mean, I'll keep it short and sweet. It's a very easy matchup in this spot coming off the bye. You'll see him get the most workload he should have had at any point this year. I'm hoping you see a little bit more vintage Nick Chubb in this matchup. You get the Jameis Winston revenge game. And I got reminded of this. Do you remember why Jameis Winston was chased out of town in New Orleans?
No, what did he do? I don't remember anything.
It was
crazy
because
happening.
the last week of last year, he audibled the play to get Jamal Williams.
Oh, yes.
And the team was so displeased about it that they wanted him out. Yeah, fuck that.
The team wasn't displeased. The coaches are displeased. I don't think his teammates are displeased.
No, the teammates were happy. The coaching staff was unhappy. So now you get to watch Jameis get a revenge game. It's not against Dennis Allen, which would have been a little bit more fun for him. It would have been nice if he was the one that got him canned, but the matchup has been easy. The Saints defense has not been good. They've been really not good since they traded away Marshawn Lattimore, but they have not been good most of the season. So I like this opportunity.
And then one flex. So I don't want to play ETN. I'm going to lean Dobbs here, even though I don't like the matchup. For ETN, I like his matchup even less. The Lions allow the sixth least fantasy points to running backs. They've been good against running backs the past 2 seasons. And as for ETN, he's been very bad this season, arguably the bust of the year. He does not have a game over 15 fantasy points, and he has under 10 fantasy points in each of his last 3 games. The only thing leaning his way, as I think Tank Bigsby is out. He is out. Yeah. So that does help him, but I think they'll be down in this game a significant margin. So I will lean Romeo Dobbs, even though the Bears defense does scare me a little bit. I do like the fact that the Packers offense does tend to throw a lot and score a lot of points, and they're coming off the bye. I will lean Dobbs because I really don't like ETN's situation or matchup.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I like that matchup better.
All right. From the Sean, what's up, guys? Full PPR, Tua, Darnold, or Richardson. I do appreciate when you guys say PPR. Oh, I guess it does kind of matter for quarterbacks in case they catch up ball. I'll go with Tua. I spoke about it a couple minutes ago. Facing the Raiders, they allow, I think, the 9th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. He has the best offense. The Dolphins are in desperation mode where they basically have to win out to make the playoffs. Darnold's looked very shaky over the last few weeks, and Richardson's looked shaky the entire season. So I will go with Tua here.
Yeah, I'm good with the Tua play. I don't mind the Darnold play either. The Titans have regressed significantly over the last few weeks as a defense, which can obviously only benefit him. So I don't mind that play as much, but I agree with Nick. I'd go with Tua.
All right, next question from Deshaun. Would y'all start MVS over McConkey? No, I'd rather play McConkey. I don't want MVS in my fantasy lineups.
Totally agree.
From Mark Volkman, since Kincaid is out, Hunter Henry, Dawson Knox, or Pat Freiermuth at tight end, half PPR. Thanks, guys. I think Freiermuth might be on your all-bust team, but I know we're both probably going to agree here. Who's your flex on your all-bust team? I forget.
My flex on my all-bust team is Najee.
Najee, okay. I know it's a Steeler. All right, I'm going to go with Dawson Knox here just for the opportunity of the Chiefs matchup. The Chiefs allow the second most fantasy points to tight ends, an average of 13.1. The Chiefs are really tough on running back, so I don't think James Cook getting a lot of opportunity, and I think this is a total Josh Allen game, which could lead to end zone opportunities for Dawson Knox. Hunter Henry's also been really good with Drake May.
Yeah,
I don't want to play Freiermuth. I want no part of Freiermuth, but I'll go with Dawson Knox.
Yeah, I do like Hunter Henry. He's been the last 3 games haven't been great. 1 game at 12, which isn't terrible. But those are all tough defenses against the tight end position. I mean, he's got 3 games this year against teams that are good against the tight end position. And in those games, he had 18 and 17. So tight end 2, tight end 6 on the week. So, I mean, I guess that's some good opportunity for Henry. I don't mind that play, but I agree with Nick. I feel like you want to take advantage of this Dawson Knox opportunity if you can.
All right, from Dale Sullivan. Hey, Primetime Fantasy Nation. 2 running back, 3 wide receiver, 1 flex, and this is full PPR, it looks like. So let's start with the 2 running backs here. We have Najee Harris, Kyren Williams, Chase Brown, and Kareem Hunt. So automatically, Nick, I don't know if we're going to agree here. I want Kyren Williams and Kareem Hunt in there for sure.
Yep, agreed.
And then we're looking at 2 wide receivers. So his receivers are Khalil Shakir, Romeo Dobbs, and Michael Pittman. ugh. Uh,
Oof,
Shakir
rough
and
with that.
Dobbs. I think it's Shakir and Dobbs. Ugh.
I agree with that.
And then we have one flex, so we're between the rest of the running backs. Najee
Um,
Harris, Chase Brown, David Montgomery, and Rico Dowdle.
I'm definitely Monty.
Your team
I don't
Monty.
think
Okay.
it's close.
I think I'll lean Team Monty, but Chase Brown is the running back one over there now, and they do score a lot of points. But the Chargers are number 2 against the run. I'll lean here with you on Monty. I think that's the way to go.
I would actually lean Monty over Kareem Hunt. I just knew I was going to flex him, so I don't mind.
From KJ Frederick, what's up, guys? With the Raiders firing their OC and saying they're going to establish the run more and a new run scheme, should I drop Algier or Trey Benson for Zamir White as a bench stash, full PPR, or leave that alone?
I would drop Algier for it. I don't mind.
Yeah, Bijan's the one over there. I don't know how many weeks you feel comfortable playing Algier. Yeah, I bet, but I don't know how many weeks you're going to play Zamir White, but I'm okay with the swap just to see what happens.
Yep.
John Cudlow playing against Lamar. Have the Steelers defense pivot to the Titans or Chargers D? I would pivot to the Chargers. Well, you don't want to drop the Steelers defense because they've been very good this season. So let's not drop the Steelers defense. I don't want to play them. I don't want to play defense against Lamar. That's for sure. I know the Steelers play him really tough, but I still don't like that. The Titans, are there any other defensive matchups? Because I do like the Titans defense for the playoffs. So if you could stash the Chargers. If you could stash the Chargers defense for the playoffs, I'm cool with that. But I don't like any of these matchups. The Titans technically have the easiest matchup, but the Vikings still have a lot of good players. So I would love to know if you have any other options on the waiver wire, maybe, because this is tough. I'm not even seeing like turnovers or sacks. Like maybe the Titans defense just to see if they could hound Darnold a little bit, but
so I would roll with the Steelers defense. I wanted to look up some stats real quick. So here's Lamar Jackson against the Steelers in his career, and I can't confirm that he's played all these games. I know he's missed some time with injury, but this is kind of what it's giving me. So the Steelers in this span, let's go back to 2020. Yeah, I guess that's a good span. So the first game was 28-24 where the Steelers won. And then every game since then has been really, really low scoring. It's been and Lamar's also only won one of these games, so I'll say that before I get into all these numbers. 19-14, 20-19, 16-13. They lose this one 14-16, 16-13, 17-10, 17-10. So it's been a very low scoring game historically between these two. I agree with Nick. I have no idea why the line is this high. It might be because the Steelers don't need to ground and pound as much. It might be because Baltimore secondary is bad. Russ has been playing good. I don't know, but the Ravens are 3-point favorites in this game as well. The line does not make sense to me. And when the line doesn't make sense to me, usually it goes the exact opposite way of how I feel, because that's how good the books are. But the history tells us this doesn't make sense. I would go with the Steelers defense. I think it makes a ton of sense based on the historical context of these two teams competing in this division.
Okay, yeah, that's a tough question for sure. All right, next one we have here from Patrick. Flex Jameson Williams or Rico Dowdle, 1-point PPR. I am out on the Cowboys offense except for CeeDee Lamb, so I probably would have said anybody over Dowdle, but I also do have Jameson Williams on the all-boom team. The Jaguars allowed the 6th most fantasy points to wide receivers, an average of 29.8. Before the suspension, Jameson Williams had 14-plus fantasy points in 4 out of 5 games. I'm very cool with this. I think he could get a pretty long touchdown possibly on a very bad secondary.
Totally agree.
From Jeff Rogers, Cortland Sutton or Calvin Ridley. Let's start with that one first. So, again, I have an all-boom guy here, Nick. I have Cortland Sutton. The Falcons allow the 9th most fantasy points to wide receivers, an average of 28.6. Cortland Sutton is the wide receiver 16 on the season. In the last 3 weeks, he has 17-plus fantasy points. In the last 4 weeks, he has 15-plus in 4 out of his last 5. He's also the wide receiver 8 since week 6, which included a goose egg. Ridley's been really good too, but I would rather play the wide receiver 1 in a positive matchup. So I'm going to go with Sutton in this one.
I don't disagree. I like Cortland Sutton in the matchup, but I do have Calvin Ridley on the all boom team, so I am gonna state my case on Calvin Ridley, and I'll go with that. And I've been in on Calvin Ridley for the last few weeks. I've wanted him. This schedule is super easy, and it starts off here with the Vikings, who allow the top 5 points per game to the wide receiver position. Since the bye week, his last 5 games, his target share has been 8, 9, 15, 8, and 9. He has 2 games as a top 5 wide receiver on the week in that span. The schedule is super easy. The floor is safe with that passing attack and with that guaranteed target share. The upside is huge because he's been their biggest touchdown threat as a wide receiver. Even though Nick Westbrook-Ikhine has gotten like 4 touchdowns in the last 5 games or something stupid and ridiculous like that, Calvin Ridley has been their go-to guy in those spots. So I am in on Ridley. I don't mind the Sutton play, obviously, as a Cortland Sutton guy that's been, I guess, a liar because I've been all in on him for 3 years and out on him this year, and this is the best year he's had.
Maybe that's a recipe for success. You just being out on him.
Yeah, I guess so.
John said he's worried about Henry's 2 touchdowns and not Lamar. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a 2-headed monster.
No,
from the Sean, pick 2, full PPR. Cortland Sutton, Demario Douglas, Javonte Williams, Michael Pittman, John Menchie, and let's start with that one first. So, I mean, for all the reasons we just stated, I think Sutton's going to be in there. For the second one, maybe Douglas. I think I'd play Douglas.
Yeah, I don't mind that. And then the third for me would probably be Pittman, as much as I don't like it. Just
was it only 2?
Well, it's 2.
Pick 2 to flex full PPR.
Oh, 2 to. Oh, sorry, I thought it was 2 wide.
Yeah, it's only 2.
Yep. Okay, perfect. Great. Then I don't have to start my pick.
And then who do I play? Jameis Carr, Derek Carr, or Jameis Winston facing each other. I'm playing Jameis this week. I am playing Jameis this week over both Geno and Caleb Williams. I think I dropped Caleb, I want to say, but I would play Jameis.
Get back time, baby. Let's go, Jabu.
All right, from Jeff Rogers, the Texans defense against the Cowboys, Dolphins defense against the Raiders. I really like the Texans defense this week. I'm going to be picking on the Cowboys the rest of the season, so I'm cool with the Texans defense, but they are both good options.
Yeah, they're both good options. I would go with the Texans as well.
And Jeff writes, what should I do with Jordan Mason and Brian Thomas Jr.? Keep them both on your bench for now. Brian Thomas Jr. is about to get the bye. Trevor Lawrence is going to get healthy. He'll be cool the rest of the season. You definitely can't drop him. As for Jordan Mason, they're in a 10-man league. I think he's droppable for the right player, but like Nick had stated earlier in the show, I wouldn't rush to drop him just in case McCaffrey goes out.
Agreed.
All right. At the moment, we have no more questions in the queue, so we are going to go game by game. There's really not much to take away from these games at this point, so I think we'll just kind of go injuries. But if you have any more questions, drop them in the chat, and we will keep answering your questions until we hit the end stream button. So, first game. Yes.
Real quick before you get to the games, this is one of the best slates of football we've had all year. This is one of
It's a pretty good slate.
It's great. You get Green Bay, Chicago division rivalry. You're going to get Jameis Winston's revenge game. You get Baltimore at Pittsburgh. You get Seattle, San Fran, big division game. You get Kansas City at Buffalo, one of the biggest games of the year. You get Joe Burrow versus Justin Herbert in prime time. I love the slate.
We're going to get a lot of divisional matchups over the next few weeks.
It's a very, very good slate of football games. I'm very much looking forward to this week of football.
From Sally Caps, Lamar or my guy Russell Wilson. I think you have to play Lamar every week. There's just not a matchup that I'm scared.
Totally agree.
Jeff Rogers, rest of season, Cade Otton or TJ Hawkinson? Has Hawkinson done like?
I'll pull up Hawk stats. I thought he played pretty well last week.
Otton's your wide receiver. I mean, you're tight end 5 at the moment. I think I'd say on. He has 18 plus fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 weeks. The only stinker was last week with only 8.5. What's Hawkinson done? Do you have the numbers in front of you?
So he's only played 45% and 46% snap share. Last week with his 46% snap share, he had 9 targets, 8 catches for 72 yards. But
I think I want to lean on.
It was against Jacksonville, who is one of the best teams against the tight end, or one of the easiest teams against the tight end possession this week.
I want to lean on because Baker is like number 1 in passing yards, and the Bucs were number 1 in points for a long time, and they got banged up. Mike Evans will be back next week, so Otton will, or in 2 weeks, so Otton will remain the number 2 target. But again, no Godwin for the rest of the season. But if these are your 2 tight ends, I wouldn't drop either. I would play the matchups. But if you like Kelsey and you have 3 tight ends, then maybe drop Hawkinson. But if you have Kelsey, why would you even keep all 3? So my guess is you have both. I would keep both and play the matchups. But if you told me if you only had to keep one in some survivor format, then Kate Otten.
If you only have to keep one, I would keep Hawkinson over Otten. But
okay,
if you need to play one, I mean,
it's an easy playoff schedule. I think they have the Panthers twice.
Yeah, no, that's true.
The Bucs are getting through the rough stretch right now. The Bucs, they come off the bye. Then they have, I know this because I was telling everybody to trade for Mike Evans. They have the Giants, the Panthers, the Raiders. Then here's your playoffs. The Chargers will be tough, but you get to the Chargers, then you have the Cowboys and the Panthers your championship week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess that helps.
From the Sean, would you start Dobbins over Hunt? I wouldn't. Hunt's on my all-boom team. The Bills have allowed the second most fantasy points to running backs, an average of 26 per game. 6 backs have scored 18-plus fantasy points against the Bills this season, and Kareem Hunt's been very good. Since week 5, he's your running back 8 on the season. He has 13-plus fantasy points in all 5 of his games. He's averaging 18 fantasy points a game, which is the 5th highest among running backs since he started week 5. So I know, as you mentioned, SMA as well. I think Kareem Hunt's a great play this week, so I would play him in every format. There's not many guys I would tell you to bench Hunt for at this point.
Yeah, his workload has just been so ridiculously consistent. I mean,
there was no committee. Like he ripped through the committee. They were all in on him.
And then when I'm curious to know what his role is going to be when Pacheco gets back.
Me too.
He's been too good to just eliminate him from the lineup.
And Pacheco's coming back from a serious injury. Why would they even rush him back at this point?
Of course. I think they play the Panthers next week or in 2 weeks. Maybe it's next week. So it's like, why are you going to rush him back?
You're undefeated, and why would you even rush him back? You give him some fresh legs for the playoffs. Maybe I'm speaking like this because I have Hunt in 2 leagues and Pacheco in 1, and I'd just rather Hunt start. But logically speaking, Chiefs, why would you even mess it up here?
I don't have either, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't think it makes sense to rush him back if you have Hunt playing this well. So
they're 7-0 or 8-0, whatever, 9-0. I don't even know what the number is this one, but and he's playing well. Like if he wasn't playing well, I'd get it. But
yeah.
From Jeff Rogers, with Josh Allen on by week 12, should I pick up Stafford or Herbert? I'm assuming he's your only quarterback. He's your only quarterback, and you just want to get it out of the way. Let's see who they have.
I'll check.
Okay. Well, I was just going to check the slate for next week. So
Herbert has Baltimore, and Baltimore is one of the worst teams against the quarterback position. That'll be
the Rams have Philly, who's been good.
That'll be Jim versus John Harbaugh matchup. That'll be a fun one. I would go with Herbert. I like the talent.
I would go with Herbert as well.
Yeah.
16-man league. Pick 2 wide receivers: Jacoby Myers, Calvin Ridley, Xavier Worthy, and Keenan Allen. I think we're both going to be in on Ridley. If you want to read off your all boom stats, you can. But I wanted Ridley for my all boom team as well. So
I mean, I've been in on Ridley. It's the start of the easiest rest of the season schedule. Vikings allow top 5 points per game to the wide receiver position, and his last 5 games have been 9 targets, 8 targets, 15 targets, 9 and 8. So pretty great.
All right, and then who's the second one that you want to play? I don't think either of us want to play Myers with that situation at the moment.
No, I do not.
I think I kind of want to play Worthy. Opportunity for a deep ball. I really don't want to play Keenan Allen at this point. I think I'd rather play Worthy in a game that should be a high scoring game. And they've used a couple goal line shuffle nonsenses down by the goal line. So I think I'd rather play Worthy.
Yeah, he hasn't had that safe workload that we thought he would get once Rashee Rice has gone down. So I mean, it's just taking the flyer if you want to do that. If not, then I probably do go with Myers. Again, don't love the matchup, don't love the little confidence in the quarterback changes, but he has had such a guaranteed workload, and he has been good for fantasy where it's harder to bench him than it would be the other guys.
In half PPR, how would you rank Knox, Ferguson, and Schultz? I would rank Dawson Knox. Then I'd rank Dalton Schultz, and then Ferguson's like not even on my video screen at this point. Again, the Cowboys offense really is that bad. In my opinion, I am very my concern for the Cowboys offense rest of the season is like higher than my screen.
I like Knox as well. Knox would be my one.
From Freezy Fantasy, start Deebo Samuel or Chase Brown. I'm going to lean Deebo here with my co-host Nick. I would like to know if this is PPR, but I think I'd still lean Deebo either way. A great matchup against the Seahawks.
Yeah, so in Deebo Samuel's career against the Seahawks, he averages over 120 yards per game. He averages over 8 targets per game, and he has 7 touchdowns in his 7 games. I think I keep saying that. I think there's only one of the 7 games where he didn't score a touchdown. So one was
he may have got
game.
hurt or something, but
yeah. So he's literally dominated this team. It's crazy the run that he's been on against them.
And the Chargers also have the second fewest fantasy points to running backs. Chase Brown's going to be a great play going forward. If your trade deadline is not tomorrow, and Chase Brown has a bad game, I'd try to go trade for him next week.
Yeah.
From Dr. Not going to read that one. Tua or Winston? I have Tillman and Njoku for the stack. Interesting. I like Tua more against the Raiders, who allow the 9th most fantasy points to quarterbacks, and he has just superstars all around him. Passes a lot to Achane, Tyreek Hill, Waddle. I think, Nick, you're going to lean the stack here, but I'm going to lean Tua. I've said it a couple of times on the show.
Yeah, I want the stack. I would rather have Jameis. I love this revenge game. I mean, I'm all in on it. I think Jameis is going to have a monster game coming off the bye. I love the Tillman play. I think Njoku is a good play this week, and I think Jameis Winston should be. Jameis is primed for his best game. Listen, here's the thing. Jameis in this match.
Jameis. That's what worries me. Is he's still Jameis, and you're putting a lot of eggs in the Jameis basket if you're stacking 3 Browns. I think that. I think if it's one stack, I'd lean a different way. But since it's a triple stack, I'm leaning Tua.
The Jameis Winston experience includes a couple interceptions. That's totally okay.
Yes.
But every time he gets an interception, it incentivizes him to get another 100 passing yards. That's the only thing.
Right.
That dude just wants to throw the ball down the field. And,
and
who do we love more for fantasy than a quarterback that wants to throw one way?
All right. Patrick, again, one PPR, I think is just full PPR. Taysom Hill or Hunter Henry at tight end. Like Nick stated earlier in the show, if you do have Taysom Hill on your roster, you're playing him every week and taking the good with the bad. I prefer playing a guy like Hunter Henry, who does have a good connection with Drake May. Rookie quarterbacks love going to tight ends. He had a couple games over double-digit fantasy points. I will lean Hunter Henry here.
I agree as well.
Okay. Dowdle or Estime? I think Estime is a higher upside. I don't want to play Dowdle. I don't want to play Cowboys. I'm so out on the Cowboys right now. And I could be so wrong, but they just look bad. All right, from Friezel Fantasy again. PPR pick 2 for the flex. Chase Brown, Cooper Kupp, or Deebo Samuel. I will go with Deebo Samuel and the target machine of Cooper Kupp. I would love to know who your receivers are if you can't play either of these guys. Like your receivers must be stacked to the heavens if these guys are both flexed for you.
I mean, I have the same thing. I went 0 running back in a league, and these are my wide receiver 3 and 4. If you were lucky enough to have that, I have Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown. So
I'm just always curious in situations like this is all.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It looks like we have some new viewers to the show that we haven't seen in a couple weeks. So thank you guys for joining. This is the Primetime Fantasy Football Podcast. We have a live show every single week, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Sundays, available on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. If you'd like, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, so you get and then hit the bell icon so you get notifications every time we do go live. We also give you 2 shows during the week that are pre-recorded, dropping on Tuesdays and Thursdays/Fridays. Those pre-recorded shows are available on YouTube and all audio streaming platforms. So he said his wide receivers are Jamar and Amon-Ra. So yep, you're playing all 4 of those guys probably every week.
Good for you.
From Luan Silva, Amari Cooper, Mac Hollins, or Alexander Madison in the flex. I think I'd rather have the upside of Cooper. I know it's a tough matchup, but I really don't want to play Madison. Just the Raiders scream to me bad team right now. And then it's between 2 Bills. I'd rather have Amari Cooper.
I don't know the DFS number. I love Mac Hollins as a sleeper play.
Okay.
With no Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman's role has been the Gabe Davis role, and Gabe Davis has crushed the Kansas City Chiefs.
Good point. Yes.
So Mac Hollins is going to slot into that. I think he's a very sneaky DFS play. He is not a fantasy football play.
So Joe, listen to this. Go pick up Mac Hollins because Nick is gassing him, and you don't have any other options.
Yeah,
better than all those other options. All right.
I think he's a very sneaky upside in this matchup.
Okay. From Dale Sullivan, in a PPR, how would you rank Freiermuth, Conklin, and Knox? I don't want Freiermuth touching fantasy starting rosters. I don't think he should be on any starting roster. He's not been a good fantasy tight end. I wouldn't want to play Conklin either. So I'd rank Knox and the rest. That's how I would rank them.
That's
Do you disagree?
No.
Okay. And you guys are welcome. Everybody say thanks for not popping up the comments because they're going through questions, but you're very welcome again. The show is every single Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. Feel free to take our advice, but at the end of the day, make your own decision as a fantasy football manager because we only know as much as we do. But hopefully you join us every week, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, available on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Hunter Henry or TJ Hawkinson from PG. I want to see the tight end ranks in terms of defenses. So Patriots are facing the Rams. What'd you say?
Hawkinson has a very tough matchup.
Hawkinson is a tough matchup against the Titans. They're fifth best against tight ends. And then we have Hunter. I'll play Hunter Henry. Play the matchup and play the fact that the rookie quarterback does love going to the tight end. I would keep both on your roster though and stream them for the next couple weeks because each of them will have positive matchups.
Yeah. Agreed.
Another Hunter Henry question, Hunter Henry or Gesicki. So from CJ. So I believe T. Higgins is good to go tonight. That's the word around town. If T. Higgins was not good to go, I would say Gesicki. But since T. Higgins looks like he's good to go, I would play Hunter Henry.
I agree.
From Karen Smith, do I bench Tyreek Hill for Cedric Tillman or McConkey? I would not. Tyreek Hill's too talented. The Raiders are actually tougher against wide receivers, but Tyreek Hill, again, is just too talented. I just traded for Tyreek Hill, so if you want, jump in the foxhole with me, and I'm playing Tyreek Hill.
I wouldn't, but I do think Cedric Tillman can and should outscore.
Who are your receivers and who are your flexes? Can we get Cedric in there somewhere?
Yeah, I can't. I can't not play Cedric Tillman if I can play him. His 3-week stretch was the wide receiver one in fantasy football.
Yeah. Let us know who your other starting receivers and flex plays are. Let's see if we can get Cedric in there, but we need to play Tyreek with a healthy Tua.
100%.
All right. While we're waiting for that response, you guys can jump any questions into the chat, but we're going to go game by game and just talk injuries here. Anything that's notable. So Packers and Bears. Jair Alexander's questionable with a knee. I think he's good to go. The Bears have 2 O-linemen dinged up. Not sure if they're starters, but aside from that, no injuries there. We've already spoken about that. We're worried about the Packers wide receivers against a stingy Bears defense, and everybody else should be good to go, I think, unless you disagree.
Yeah, totally agree.
Do I bench Devontae Adams because I can't bench Bijan or Brees and Jacobs at flex? Yes, I would bench Devontae Adams for Cedric Tillman.
I would bench Josh Jacobs for Cedric Tillman.
I'd probably bench either for Cedric Tillman.
Yeah, I would do too.
If this is full PPR, I do like the upside of wide receivers, so I think I'd lean with Nick and bench Josh Jacobs. So you cannot bench Bijan or Brees for sure. They are locked in every week.
Totally agree.
All right, again, keep putting those questions in, guys, and we will answer your questions as we're going through these games. So, Jags at the Lions. The big news here is that Trevor Lawrence is out with a shoulder injury. They're biased next week, so they're just resting him. Obviously, they're not going to make the playoffs this year. Smart move by them. But the Lions' defense is a great play. Tank Bigsby's also out. I wouldn't comfortably play any Jag, and I would play all your Lions except for Sam Laporta, who is also out with a shoulder. Nick does not like the Brock Wright play, but I would play any other line comfortably. I do have Jared Goff on the all boom team. The Jags have allowed the most fantasy points to QBs, an average of 22.7, and 7 quarterbacks have scored over 18 fantasy points against the Jags. So I would lock in your Lions this week.
I actually want to give you a stat real quick. I'm trying to pull it up quick. It's a FanDuel stat.
Okay.
But typically, if you are a sports gambler, you are only allowed to do an alternate point spread up to a certain number.
Yes.
So right now, Detroit is a 13.5 point favorite in this game.
Yes.
Typically, they only let you move the line, I would say around like high 20s to like maybe 30 points as a favorite.
Yeah.
FanDuel in this game will only allow you to move the line up to Detroit minus 39.5, and the return is plus 1,800. I know if you're not a sports gambler, that does not make any English to you. But what that's pretty much saying is that there is a very realistic shot that they cover 40 points in this game. Where it starts getting exponentially higher is around the minus 34.5. So the books really think that Detroit's going to win by 35 points. And it's like, do you want to take the risk of betting it that high? But I don't know if that's, I think it's going to be a slaughtering in this one.
Dale asks if any guys on the waivers is worth a start over Dobbs. MVS, Booty, Johnston, Juju. I would play Johnston. He has a good connection with Herbert and he has 4 or 5 touchdowns. I would roster Johnston over Dobbs as well.
I agree entirely.
I'd roster him and I'd play Johnston over Dobbs. And you get a Sunday Night Football play, which is always fun.
Yeah, that's a good matchup.
Next game, the Minnesota Vikings at the Tennessee Titans. L'Jarius Sneed is out with a quad injury, so that's good for your Vikings wide receivers. Nothing else to really mention. I mean, Tony Pollard's a great back, but he's a tough matchup against the Vikings. Third best defense against the run in terms of fantasy football, but everybody else is fine. I'm just going to run through these games, and then you can chime in.
Yeah, go for it. Perfect.
And again, ask any questions, guys, and then we will wrap up. Raiders at the Dolphins. Obviously, we spoke about the whole quarterback controversy nonsense with the Raiders, but in terms of injuries, both teams are mostly good. So play your Dolphins, don't play your Raiders. Los Angeles Rams at the New England Patriots. There's injuries around the board here. Tyler Higbee's out, but your main fantasy players are all playing, but there are just defensive players and injuries here and there. But again, I think you're playing your superstar Rams players. Stafford's in play. Kyron you're playing. Kupp and Puka you're playing, obviously. For your Patriots, Drake May is a shaky play, I think, and then Hunter Henry, we said, is a fine streaming option. And you're probably playing Ramondre, knowing the position is thin, and you probably have to play him.
Yep.
Cleveland Browns at the New Orleans Saints. We talked about this game a lot. Nick is all over Jameis Winston. We both like Cedric Tillman play. I don't love really playing any Saint except for Kamara. That's just one of my teams that I'm just very against at the moment.
Yep. Totally.
Indianapolis Colts at Knicks New York Jets. Devontae Adams has a wrist and an illness. He's questionable, but should play. Tyron Smith is out. That's not good for the Jets either. Is Jake Hansen a starter? A guard? Is he also a starter?
I have no idea.
I don't know either. I really don't want to play any Colts comfortably except for Jonathan Taylor. That's not even comfortable. And as for the Jets, I mean, you're playing Brees, you're playing Devontae Adams, and you're playing Garrett Wilson. Those are your Jets.
Yep, exactly. Nailed it.
Ravens at the Steelers. Another one where there's just really no offensive players injured. You're just playing everybody at this point. I mean, you're playing Pickens. Nick does not like Najee Harris. He's on the all-bust team. Derrick Henry's a go. Flowers a go. Lamar's a go. Deontay Johnson's a shaky go in your flex, depending on your roster. But he's going to have a good game at some point. I think he's very talented.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the player to keep an eye out on in this one.
From Craig Wayne, Dawson Knox or Ricky Pearsall PPR?
I'd go Pearsall. I like what I've seen from him on the field so far. No, George Kittle should open up opportunities from some of the other receivers. The Seahawks get dominated by the 49ers and Shanahan. Historically, I have no problem taking my shot on a guy like that over a tight end because we just don't like to flex tight ends.
I don't disagree with Nick, but my concern with Pearsall is the fact that Juwan Jennings and Debo are ahead of him, and McCaffrey's also back, and they could go up big in this game, but they might want to get the rookie involved a little bit. For you guys that are not sticking around as we're going through injuries, we answered all your questions. I want to thank you guys for joining us. Make sure to join us every week, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube, please do that before you log out of your YouTube app. We'd really appreciate that. You can hit the bell icon so you get notifications every time we go live or post a new video. You will get 2 videos every week from us, a pre-recorded podcast available on Tuesdays and Fridays, available on both YouTube and our audio streaming platforms. If you're driving in the car and rather listen on Apple Podcasts or something like that, just search us PrimeTime Fantasy Football Podcast.
So just real quick, because it'll be funny for the people that are paying closer attention to the show. Nick gave the advice that Joe should drop one of his options that he was thinking about playing for Matt Collins based off my strong take. Well, I just got a notification that Joe has dropped Rashad Bateman and picked up Matt Collins, which means that Joe, thank you for listening to our advice on that one. But just funny to see that notification pop up after our
All right. We're going to keep going through the rest of these games. And again, if you have any other questions, drop them now before we check out of here. Falcons at the Broncos. Again, no real fantasy players are being implicated. We do not like Drake London due to the Patrick Surtain shadowing. I don't like Kirk Cousins for a multitude of reasons. Nobody asked a question on him, so now I'll read out why I don't like him. Broncos allow the fourth fewest fantasy points, 2 quarterbacks, an average of 14.5. No quarterback has scored more than 13 fantasy points at Mile High Stadium this season. And 6 of the 10 games that Kirk Cousins has played this season have been under 15 fantasy points. I would keep Kirk on the bench if you have another option. And you're probably playing, Bijan and Cortland Sutton and, everybody else. So.
Yeah,
all right.
I really like Bo Nix this week. So if you're thinking about starting him, if you have a close Bo Nix question, I would roll with Bo.
Dale Sullivan, half PPR flex options are Pittman, Xavier Worthy, Isaiah Likely, Jalen Warren, who is questionable, and Rico Dowdle. I know these are not the best options, but I will go with Xavier Worthy and what I think will be one of the higher scoring games of the week. Pittman's your best player, but you can't comfortably start him. You can't comfortably start any of these guys, but I will go with Worthy. I mean, I don't want a backup running back, don't want a Cowboy, don't want Likely.
Totally agree.
Okay, we're into the 4 o'clock slate now. My Seattle Seahawks are going to get absolutely demolished by the San Francisco 49ers. It will not be pretty. Mostly healthy game. Juwan Jennings is with an ankle is questionable. He should be good to go, though. Trent Williams with an ankle is questionable, good to go. George Kittle with a hamstring is most likely out, so I would not keep Kittle in your starting roster. Play your 49ers. Nick's been all over Debo. We like Juwan Jennings. McCaffrey's going to play. Kenneth Walker. We just don't like the Seahawks receivers or Geno. I would keep Geno on the bench if you can.
Agreed.
From Nick the Kick, pick 2 PPR, Romeo Dobbs, Brian Thomas Jr., Demario Douglas, or Estime. You don't have to say his first name. I actually do like Estime over these options, Nick. I really don't want to play Brian Thomas Jr. as much as I love the talent. So now I'm between Dobbs and Douglas. What do you think?
I would go Brian Thomas over Dobbs and Douglas just because the talent
Jones,
is better.
though.
But at the same time, we know the game script is going to be they have to pass the ball all game. Mac's not going to be able to do it well, but he should, in hindsight, like after the game, if we see Brian Thomas puts up 15 points, we're going to be like, obviously game script, workload, and that. I don't know if we're going to say in hindsight, Douglas and Dobbs were good plays. Like that's how I'm trying to.
I want to play Estime and Douglas. The Rams allow the 8th most fantasy points to receivers, so I'm okay with the Douglas play.
Sure.
John Cobble says CMC 2 TDs. I think that could definitely happen today. All right. Buffalo Bill Chiefs at the Buffalo Bills. Harrison Butker is the big injury here, guys. So if you have Butker and you thought he was good to go, he is not. Go pick up another kicker. Keon Coleman's out with a wrist. Dalton Kincaid's out with a knee. So we've all been telling you the entire show to play Dawson Knox. Amari Cooper with a wrist is questionable. He should play. I think you're just playing your stars in this one. I'm worried about James Cook, but you probably can't bench him. I love Kareem Hunt this week.
Yep.
Sunday Night Football. The Cincinnati Bengals at the Los Angeles Chargers. No offensive players are really injured here. I think we're both a little bit worried about Chase Brown, but you probably have to play him if you do. I mean, we've answered a couple Chase Brown questions on the show, but you probably have to play him. T. Higgins also is off the injury report, and he will play. So get T. Higgins in your lineup.
Yep.
Any thoughts on starting Mooney and London this week? PPR, I have Chase and Waddle as well. Def starting Chase. So who's your flex option? So I want Chase and Waddle in there, but then, if they're flexing one of them, I think I'd actually start Mooney over London. I think London's going to be shadowed by Surtain, which worries me.
Interesting. I don't know if Waddles is locked and loaded. I mean, I like him, his rest of the season outlook and projection with him, but he's had a very rough year.
Yes.
Been very, very bad. I think he only has one game over double digits, and it was week 1. So I'm hoping he can get back on track. I'm confident he can, but there's just no guarantee, unfortunately.
Yeah. Monday Night Football, Houston Texans at the Dallas Cowboys. Dak is out for the season. CeeDee's questionable with a back, but he's going to play. I don't want to say the want. You have to play CeeDee, but I don't think any Cowboy should be starting in your lineup. Well, he has Pickens in the flex. I would start Chase Waddle and Pickens, and I would just bench both Falcons. That's what I would do.
Yep.
And then play your Texans. Like the Cowboys defense is bad. Play your Texans. Joe Mixon's gonna have a monster game. I don't have to give all the stats that I have here, but Joe Mixon should have a great game on Monday Night Football.
Agreed.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap up in the next minute or two. So if you have any last-minute questions, get them in now. Thank you guys for joining us. We do the show every week live, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. If you haven't dropped a like on this video, please do. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do. Hit the bell icon so you get notifications every time we go live or drop a new video. We do give you 2 pre-recorded podcasts during the week on Tuesdays and Thursdays or Fridays. The audio and video version is available on our YouTube. If you're driving in the car and would rather consume the podcast content, on an audio streaming platform, subscribe to our podcast anywhere where you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it is, just search Primetime Fantasy Podcast. If you have any other questions, we are available on all social media channels. We're available on Twitter/X at PrimeTimeFFPod. Instagram is Primetime Fantasy Football Podcast. This will probably be the last question that we do answer here. Rome the host, start 3. I'm assuming it's PPR. If it's not PPR, let us know. Cedric Tillman, Josh Downs, Juwan Jennings, Ladd McConkey, Ricky Pearsall, and Michael Pittman. I think me and Nick are both going to be in on Cedric Tillman and Juwan Jennings. So, Nick, who would you start as your third one between these last 4 guys? Josh Downs, Ladd McConkey, Ricky Pearsall, Michael Pittman. It's half PPR.
I would be between Pearsall and McConkey. I don't mind you hedging and doing Jennings and Pearsall and guaranteeing the second most workload from the wide receiver core between the 2 of them. I don't hate that decision at all. If you are chasing the upside, I would go Tillman, Jennings, and McConkey.
I like Ladd because I think he could be the wide receiver 1 over there. He also has Purdy as his quarterback, but I wouldn't want to start both of those receivers. That would drive me insane. Yeah. I have Juwan Jennings and Debo, and it's driving me insane.
Yeah.
Who could you trade Tyreek Hill for? I just traded James Cook for Tyreek Hill.
You got James Cook, you're saying?
No, I traded James Cook.
Oh, you traded James Cook away and you got
Tyreek Hill.
Okay.
3 catches for 16 yards is not it, but he's so talented. So I would go look for a running back of equal value. Tyreek Hill still holds a lot of name value. He's still really talented.
I would get Cedric Tillman and someone else.
Okay. All right, guys. Thanks again for joining us for our Week 11 show. Best of luck in Week 11. Again, any other questions? I dropped all the information that you need, and we'll talk to you guys on Tuesday.